NFL free agency has begun, and it's been crazy, and we're gonna fucking talk about it.
Hey, New York Jet fans from all around the world. Welcome to Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast. The show that delivers you all your Jets content. Here are your hosts, John, Adam, and Monty. All the best to the New York Jet fans. Jets, 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 go Jets.
What up?
What's up, guys?
What up? What up?
Yeah,
Been an
free agency has
interesting few
begun.
days, yeah.
And I just want to say, because St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and it's the only other day where you can wear green and it be acceptable outside of a Jet game or when you buy our swag. But here we go. This is my tribute today, where it's Irish yoga. Just a bunch of leprechauns.
Yeah, I just stuck to the Jets green.
It's cool.
same.
At least you got the hat on. I don't know what Adnan's got, but he's got no swag on. So
Yeah, I got to get the hat.
yeah, the hat's a good look.
The hat's huge. The hat looks
Yeah.
good, man. It's actually it's a nice hat. It feels nice. You know, it's got some. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of a basic, snapback, but I think it feels pretty sexy.
It is a sexy snapback. But anyway, as we said, free agency has begun. And the way we plan on doing this is basically going in the order of things happening, at least for contracts that we know about, in terms of signings. And then we're going to go into basically the other big news in the Jets world after that. But I guess we will get the ball rolling. Sherwood was re-signed. The Jets bring back home talent. It's one of the few bright spots of the 2021 draft class and makes it the third that is to continue on another contract with AVT and Michael Carter II. He was given a nice payday, 3 years, $45 million with 30 guaranteed. Monty, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm very happy about it. You know, Sherwood really right after Mosley's injury. And I mean, you could say he performed well enough to earn a new contract. I think he stepped up as a leader on the defense. I think that he's, him along. They'll definitely kind of alternate being able to take over that leadership role in the Jet defense. I like it. I think he's an ascending defensive star. That he, been a good fit on. He's done well for us, and I think he'll continue to do so. So, no complaints there, and I don't think that we overpaid or anything like that. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think the smartest thing they did was, not let him get to free agency because there would have been a bidding war for him, right? Especially with Saleh in San Francisco, with Ulbrich in Atlanta. You would have had people that are familiar with him, and he is a young, ascending player. I love moves like this because the price point is right, the years are right, and it shows the locker room that we are going to take care of our own. And I think for the first real signing for the new regime, I think this was kind of the right message to send to the locker room and kind of everybody, that's up for new contracts. Something like AVT who's coming up. I think these are all, this is a good thing. Definitely also allowed them to, move on. I know we'll talk about it later, but to move on from Mosley. If they weren't able to retain him, then letting Mosley go, I think would have been a much bigger deal. Maybe they don't even do it. So this was a move that kind of allowed them to facilitate that. But no qualms here. I think good move, and I think he'll reward the Jets. So smart move on their part for the first signing of the regime.
Yeah, and I will just echo that Sherwood becomes tied for the 5th highest paid linebacker in the league in terms of average salary. The other big contract in that realm that was done this time was Nick Bolton for Kansas City, and like they're about the same age, and they're basically on the same timeline too, which is interesting. The only guys that are getting paid more than Sherwood right now, and note that Sherwood I think led the league in tackles last year too. So and he doesn't miss tackles. He's just a fucking stud. It's great to see someone who actually was a safety coming out, I believe, right? Convert over to linebacker. So he's a quick dude. He doesn't fucking miss. And the second Mosley went out, he took over the leadership role in the middle. So like good for him beyond means. But the only four linebackers, inside linebackers that are getting paid more is Zach Braun from Philly, whose contract started 51/3. Tremaine Edmonds, 18 mil a year, 4 years, 72. Fred Warner, who's probably the best linebacker in the league.
He's amazing.
A little over 19. And Roquan Smith, his contract is 2 years.
Also
pressure,
amazing.
20 million a year. Also perennial first team all pro guys, right? So like I think it's a great move, and it definitely I mean we could jump to the Mosley thing after because they do kind of go hand in hand if you guys want to do that. We will. Well, like it made sense. I mean, the Jets. I mean, if you notice in this free agency class, and we're going to go through the other ones, they're getting younger, right? And Mosley's older, right? And definitely losing a step. And Sherwood is an ascending talent, right? And he hasn't even reached his prime yet. Pay him. And what's interesting is Quincy's contract is coming up too. It's his final year of his deal, so I'm sure he's going to get paid too. And like, you know what? And you were right. You guys were right. Adnan made the good point that like definitely there was going to be some suitors for Sherwood, especially Saleh in San Francisco, given they did like Greenlaw walk. That makes sense, right? And he ended up going which is just
quick question for you guys. So do you Adnan, you kind of brought up a good point there where oh my god, I'm like totally blanking on what I was going to say.
Excellent. Well, I'll fill in. Was also team MVP last year.
Lost my fucking.
Yeah, he was team MVP last year, so obviously you want to bring back team MVP, right? That makes sense. There.
Yeah.
Okay, you regain your thoughts. Yes or no?
The gears are working. The request has been sent. It's just got to come back in a second. So continue with what you were saying. I'll think.
Well, we got like a fucking hour to do this, so I better fucking come back sometime soon, man.
Let me see.
No.
Adnan, you mentioned how that we have Saleh over in San Fran now, and we have Ulbrich down in where's he at? Atlanta. So now between those two, do you think it says anything if they don't take any or don't go for or don't make a stab at any Jets defensive players or poach any of our players in any way? Do you think that says or means anything? Do you expect them to do it? What are you guys' thoughts on having two now adversarial relationships of former coaches in defensive positions and who know our team very well?
Well, San Francisco's in cap hell, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think even if they wanted to, they could make any of the guys, and we'll go over the guys that have been signed where they went, right? But I don't know. San Francisco would be tough. Atlanta's a weird one to me. Like
they have cap problems too.
Yeah, So I mean, like these teams have cap problems. If they didn't have cap problems, like I feel like DJ Reed would maybe be headed to San Francisco. They need a corner, especially since they lost Charvarius Ward.
But if they weren't capital, they'd probably keep Ward.
They would have just kept Ward. Yeah,
and Atlanta already had AJ Terrell, and they just
but DJ Reed is more of a corner two, right? Like he's not going to be your corner one. So if you're looking for a corner two, that could be for either of those guys. But I just think with their cap situations, no. So that's a really good thought. I just feel like because of the situation, like they really couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. But I will say, and maybe because he was already in San Francisco, like Solomon Thomas going, I believe, to Dallas, as opposed to back with Saleh in San Francisco, seemed to be his boy. But, outside of that, I think it's a really interesting thought, but the cap situation makes it tough.
Got it.
It does. And I guess we can move to the next half of that and how that affects everything is CJ Mosley was cut. a little bit later, and it's not really in the timeline of the events that happened with the signings, but it's something that is of note because CJ Mosley it was the last contract that McCagan sent out there that stuck around. Although it was restructured God knows how many times. So unbelievable. Like if you really think about it, CJ Mosley lasted really long time, because that started in 2019, right? And it just kept going. It kept getting restructured and restructured, all over time, right? So it sucks because I remember when we first saw him, my God, he looked like Lawrence Taylor in that first game against Buffalo, right?
No.
Then he got hurt and he tried coming back and then he got hurt. Then they had the COVID year, so he got a pass, right, on that. Then he played, and then he played again, and I think he was second team All-Pro 1 year, I believe, right, in that whole mix. Then he was a Pro Bowler when Quincy was All-Pro, although Quincy didn't get the Pro Bowl that year, which was funny, right? Just weird how that fucking works out, right? And then it just sucks. So it was 5 years of Mosley, right? But really 4, right? Or even not even really, it's 3, right? And this year wasn't even really a full year, right? So and the Jets are getting younger, which it seems like, right? This, I guess you have to make it. It sucks though, because that was a leader of the defense for a while.
Right. That's why it's bittersweet for me because I just remember seeing him and being yeah, with the dreads and the big imposing frame and just the way he was and he carried himself like a leader. And I really liked having him, but it just honestly didn't amount to much. And honestly, what kind of sucks is I will never forget when it was the game for Halloween or Halloween weekend. Yeah. He came out with the Bane, mask, and he looked all badass, and then we got our ass beat. It was just
the defense looked good. That was a Zach Wilson nightmare game. Yeah, I will say this though, because Adnan and I got the pleasure of meeting CJ Mosley, one of the autograph things. It was the same. That was 2019, actually. Lo and behold, right? He was a really nice guy.
Yeah. Took a picture with us. I still have it. He's a really good dude. And I think that's the thing that you get with Mosley, he's not just a leader on the field, off the field, in the locker room. He probably had a huge hand in mentoring Quincy and Sherwood, and those are the things that make it bittersweet with Mosley.
Right.
And I think it is a tough thing to see him go, but the guy had a neck injury last year. Who knows if he's even going to play again this year? If he does, neck injuries are no joke. So, you just hope whatever he does, he stays healthy and he's fine for the rest of his life. And I think that Mosley allowed them to have two guys like Sherwood and Quincy. So definitely appreciate that. Not leaving empty-handed with Mosley because of his contributions there, even if they weren't as much on the field as we would have liked them to be in terms of overall team success. Definitely going to miss him, but, it's time to kind of just move forward from all of the players and coaches and front office people that have this bad taste in our mouth. They did it today so they could, split the dead cap up. So that makes sense there. But yeah, I get the move, and I think it's in the long run, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I could see him replacing Greenlaw in San Francisco, actually. I could see, because I think safe to say Mosley's about winning a ring at this point, right? And
100%, yeah.
And it was crazy just during the whole turbulence of the Jets, pun intended with our show, right? He really believed that this franchise was going to turn around and wanted to be a part of it, right?
I know.
He really say this about McCagan because he made some shitty fucking signings. There was 2 that were pretty damn good, right? There was Crowder, I thought was great, right? Another
Crowder
really
was good, yeah.
Great locker room guy. But CJ was so bought in. And yeah, it was a very expensive deal. It was the highest paid linebacker deal at the time, right?
Yeah.
He was so bought in to making the Jets great. And it sucks that I hate to say we failed them too, but we failed them too.
Yeah, we failed him.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. But I also think the other thing for Mosley is like he's a guy with his play style and build. He was 10 to 12 years too late, right? If he's a linebacker in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? I just think like with the way the game evolved, it just kind of kept getting a little bit further and further away from his skill set, but he was still a great Jet, contributed a lot, and you got to give him credit for everything that he did.
I don't know about that because he was kind of on the smaller side for linebackers, in the end, right? I mean, he did lean out a little bit more, but he was a little bit smaller.
A lot.
Right, but in his prime, you know what I mean? He was that kind of big, thumping,
it's in Baltimore.
Linebacker. You know what I mean? Yeah.
God, he was so good in Baltimore, man.
He was so good in Baltimore. That was like the tail end of that era for those type of linebackers.
Yeah, him, Kuechly, I guess Wagner.
Mm-hmm.
Wagner got a new deal today, too. 1 year, $9 million, which I thought was insane. All right, so yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's still doing this. Wagner. I mean, he's not Wagner like of old, but I don't think that's not worth a year $9 million.
Yeah, and I think like on an up and coming young team, having that veteran presence, you got to pay a little bit for it too.
Yeah. All right. So now the big elephant in the room for the signings, right? It was the first, the splashy one, right? It's Justin Fields. He is our quarterback and presumably going to be our starter. He got 2 years, $40 million with 30 guaranteed. It was the second largest quarterback contract handed out this cycle behind Sam Darnold, which is just amazing for some reason, right? And then also Geno being moved too. So it's a lot of Jet quarterback news basically during this whole cycle. And Zach got a deal too, which is great. So a lot of Jet quarterbacks in the mix, but Fields, that one's really interesting. I mean, it makes us a dual threat team. It feels like we're just going to be very run heavy going forward, in my opinion. And like I was watching a lot of what Blewett was trying to do with kind of highlighting some like really bright spots for Fields last year, and like, yeah, it looks like there was progress made relative to his Chicago days, right? So like maybe it works out. And I think, it sucks he didn't give him last year's receiving core because I think it would have been way better. But obviously you got Adams for Rodgers, right? And all that. And actually it's funny, Fields never threw a ball to Mike Williams, right? Even though they kind of intersect right there. But at least Fields is paired up with his homie, Garrett Wilson, who he was very familiar with Ohio State and got him, high on the poll, on the I guess the draft board, right? Although Fields kind of fell if you really think about it, on the, which was interesting. But anyway, I'll go to Adnan first. What do you think of the whole Fields thing?
Listen, I think it was the best move at quarterback they could have made because look, they weren't trading for Geno, they weren't signing Darnold. And I think when you look at Fields, you have a guy who's still young, hyper athletic, obviously, right, familiar with Garrett, familiar with Rucker. They played together as well, so I think you'll see Rucker will probably be back. And I think, when you have a young coaching staff and you have a guy like Engstrand who wants to be kind of a run-first coordinator, build a run-first offense. You have the personnel to do it. I mean, now if you draft, and I'm going to hammer this, if you draft Tyler Warren at 7 and you have all these different combinations of things you can do with all these different athletes, even with Braylon, Allen, and Brees in the backfield together with Fields, there's a lot of different things you can do now. And I think it's just a good fit. The contract is not prohibitive, right? So they can move on from him whenever they want. If they do draft a quarterback next year, if they somehow luck into Jackson Dart, you don't have to force a young quarterback to play immediately. If Justin Fields has a decent year this year, he goes into the year as the starter next year. You draft somebody and you don't have to anoint them the savior on day one, So I think all of these things in the short term, it was kind of the perfect move. Right now, is it going to work out like Darnold? Probably not. And that's okay, right? You have a guy that, I would have been sick to my stomach if the quarterback options were a camp battle between Marcus Mariota and Tyrod Taylor and Kyle McCord, right? So I think this move at least gives the Jets some kind of competent floor at quarterback. Have no idea what the ceiling is, right? Might be 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 wins. But that's okay. And you see what you have in Fields, and then you move forward from there. This also, I think, is really big for Garrett. We talked about this in our group chat. This is huge for Garrett, right? Because you're doing things to make him happy now, right? The one coach you kept was his receivers coach, right? And then you went and got his college quarterback who has a really good relationship with. Now it's time to say, hey, Garrett, I know last year and the year before it was Rodgers and Devontae and this. The passing game should run through Garrett Wilson, right? And now I think you're building it in that way. That be a run-first team, passing game runs through Garrett Wilson, and I think you can do some good things. So I don't have anything bad to say about this. Contract is perfectly in line. Again, not prohibitive. And you have a guy with some upside who at least gives you an athletic floor.
Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah, I mean, so originally when we were going to draft Zach Wilson, I always wanted Fields over Zach Wilson. I thought that was the better choice. I still think to this day we would have won more games with him. Now, would we still be in the same situation? Who knows? We could play that game all day. But I did want him over Zach Wilson. I will say that much. I think he's proven he's got, very, very gifted wheels. He's got the single, second highest single season QB rushing total behind Lamar. I think in NFL history. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. That's never, and that's something that's, the league's kind of trending towards a little bit more of a mobile quarterback or quarterback with a mobile skill set. I think he's good for the times. I think we didn't pay too much for him. I also think that, the fact of him being a constant rushing threat, I think that now unlocks possibly Breece Hall, because you can't, you got the spy on him, trying to prevent him from running and taking off. Who's watching Breece? Breece coming out of the backfield on the other side. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot there that can be done. I think that if we can build the right offense around him, which now we got to see what Engstrand's chops are all about, because it's going to be how you use a guy like this that's going to make or break, because obviously he has not been used very well to date. A 5-24 QB record as a starter is pretty freaking bad, but the Chicago Bears were also pretty bad. And then, he couldn't really beat out Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's a crafty veteran.
So Wilson was annoyed at the starter, and he got hurt in the preseason, if you remember, and he was eventually going to take over because they wanted to see that. And like, still, Field started up 4-2, though. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's 4-2. That's nothing to.
I will echo one thing. I'm just going to go through the some stats per PFF with Justin Fields, if that's okay. Like, it seems like the passing grade got worse over time. I will say that as like the season drug on. I mean, obviously Atlanta, Denver, he was pretty solid. But it did get worse, and like his worst game as a thrower, you can argue, was the Cowboy game where it was really wet, or the Vegas game where they didn't really have to, do anything basically in the air, if that made sense. But the big time throw rate for him, 3.4%. It's a little low. Also, the average depth of target was very low with those 3 wins in the beginning, if that makes sense. It was all sub 7 yards. Yeah. Then it did tick up. And obviously in the Cowboy game, they were airing it out for some weird fucking reason and got up to 11 yards per target depth. Adjusted completion percentage is 78.2, which, makes sense, right? But it's just something to be very noted for that he did have a lot of drops from his guys because let's just be real, besides Pickens, there's really not much there. Although he was utilizing the tight end a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could use Fryermuth is no joke. Fryermuth is a very decent tight end. He's got good hands. So, but what I was gonna say is what you were saying before is kind of my concern with him. He just is not a pocket passer, and I don't know that the Jets have the infrastructure to train up a QB that is lacking so severely in the throwing talent. Like who's Charles London worked with really before? Like what's he really done as far as taking a QB, molding them? I don't know. What's Engstrand done in that regard? I mean, I guess you could say he's worked with with Goff, but there's a lot of people who can take credit for Goff too. I mean, Goff already did get to a Super Bowl before he even set foot on the Lions. Say what you want about him, he still was at least good enough to help contribute to getting there. So it's hard to say. It's hard to really say if this is, but I just don't see us having the infrastructure yet again to raise a QB that's not immensely talented. I do like the fact that now I do still though think, and I echo you guys, that this was the best move for us. He's got the wheels. He's got a lot of good talents to him, but I think that the Jets should not shy away from drafting a QB. I would love to see us maybe trade picks with Chicago and get Dart in the early part of the second round, something like that. But I just really, to me, this seems like a good situation to create a quarterback competition. You have Fields, you have Tyrod, and then you have another QB from the draft, preferably Dart. Those three guys going at it, I think that gives you a really good shot at finding someone to be the guy. I don't want to see the Jets just anoint Justin Fields and be like, all right, he's the guy, we're sticking with him, and we're gonna go into the season, and that's not what I want to see, and that's the point I wanted to make at this point.
Last thing I want to say about Fields real quick. It was his best season last year in terms of turnover worthy throws. He only threw one pick last year, 5 touchdowns, mind you. But turnover worthy throw rate basically is like when a ball's like interceptable. It was 2.8%, which was pretty decent. I mean, it was like in the middle, if that made sense, right? Rodgers was better last year, to be totally honest on that one. But like considering that like he was like over 3% most years, and his worst season in Chicago was 4.5% basically on that rate, which is a little scary. But like he just doesn't throw that much, but like man, he could fucking run. And I do like that, and I think like we haven't had a running quarterback, even like, and I said this in our chat, and I say it, Monty, that finally now the Jets are all black at quarterback.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
Unless they draft a white guy.
I know. Unless they get
I'm actually screwing the dog.
I would, to kind of go back to a couple of things you said, Monty. One, like, I hate to burst your bubble, but Fields is the starter, right? Like, there's no competition. He's paid as, a low-end starter. Like, he's the starter. Tyrod's the backup, and they may be bringing someone else in for depth, especially if they decide to move on from Jordan Travis. Now, on the coaching side of things, like, we don't know. Right? Like, it's easy to say, oh, they aren't experienced. Have they done it? Fine, but we have no idea, right? Everyone was inexperienced at things they did.
We have a little of an idea.
I don't think we do. What do we know about?
When you've never, ever done something, I mean, that's just the probability and statistics. If you've never done something, your chance of doing it is not high.
Yeah, but we've all started somewhere where we've never done something. Like
true, but these people have never coached. They've been coaches for a while. Like London's not some newbie who just came up off the street. Like he's been in the league for a while, and he's not really worked with or taken any
and that's one component of it, right? You still have Engstrand, who's going to be the big driver there. You also have Aaron Glenn, who is the head coach, who's going to have a hand in it. I'm not willing to say that, well, the Jets don't have the infrastructure because these guys have never, ever done it before.
Yeah.
We have to let this stuff play out and see how it works.
I'm
And
saying
lastly,
that looking
I will
at
say this too, to add to that, Tyrod has been like a consummate professional when it comes to guys taking his job, if that makes sense, right? Herbert took his job once. Baker took his job once. I'm trying to think. His time did not overlap in Buffalo. I remember that.
He was the year before Allen, right?
That's right.
Those are all significantly better passers than him. Tyrod is leaps and bounds of a better passer than Justin Fields.
Yeah, but maybe you can learn from that, because I mean, like basically, like if you look at like where Fields was, right? Like, I mean, who was his primary go-to backup quarterback? Was Foles at one point in Chicago, right? I could be wrong on that.
I think it was. I think he was there for a year. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then last year it's Russell, who's just like a deep ball touch guy, right?
Yeah, and I don't think Russ was helping him, to be honest, right? Russ puts on the whole like facade of team guy, but I don't think he was in there being like, hey, let me help you, man. Like
they're very different people. Actually, not Justin Fields. I remember watching QB1 back in the day when like they were doing it for college quarterbacks, and he was on it. Yeah, I mean, no, but Russell's the corniest fucking dude ever, right?
He's such a cornball. The whole running drills on the plane. You guys heard about that? Like he's taking snaps, invisible snaps.
When he was hurt in Seattle and they were playing the Giants, I remember, and he was the only one on the field. And he was
running a whole offense, pretending,
he was so bad. He's taking a knee, actually calling a play like he's in a huddle, then coming to the line. I was like, this is insanity.
I mean, it's crazy though, because to some degree, right? Like if he was like Tom Brady good, you'd be like, oh my God, that's what it takes. Oh wow. But like because he's Russell Wilson, I mean, listen, he's got a ring, so some of what he's doing, and he's been to the Super Bowl twice. So some of what he's doing is
carried him. Come on now.
I don't know if it carried him. I mean,
come on, dude. Legion of Boom.
He had great seasons, bro. Like he's not a bad. You can't say he was a bad quarterback for back. I know.
I'm not saying he was a bad quarterback. The Legion of Boom was the Legion of fucking Boom, though.
Yeah, but at the same time,
they were great, but they don't score points. They're great, but they don't score touchdowns.
Very good quarterback.
He was very good.
Yeah, 10 Pro Bowls. 10 Pro Bowls.
Yeah, you gotta give him his flowers a little bit.
Yeah. Who's this? God, I don't know. There's something about Russell. Like maybe it's just like. Just looks like a cuck to me sometimes, man. You know what I mean? I know Adnan doesn't like it. All right.
Yeah, let's stay away from that.
Very good. Very good. All right. So I guess we're moving on from that. Now, the more curious signing was Brandon Stevens. It was not on anybody's radar, if that made sense, right? He's a cornerback from Baltimore. He was a third rounder. Originally, his career is very interesting, and I can kind of highlight that since I did some digging on him, if that made sense. But basically, in high school and college, he was a running back. He actually went to UCLA originally. And then basically from there, he transferred to SMU. And they basically were like, yeah, you should play corner. And he's like, all right. Anyway, he got drafted because, I mean, physically, it kind of makes more sense than, I guess, what he was, going in as a running back, right? So he plays corner there. Then he gets drafted. And then they're like, yeah, you're going to play safety because our cornerback room is just so fucking loaded. And he's like, all right, I'll play fucking safety. And, like, I don't know if you remember, but basically, like, they had so many corners in Baltimore. And then, like, a couple of years later, they kept getting hurt, right? They kept getting hurt. So he got moved to corner. And then he became a starting corner for the last 2 years there. And, so this guy really hasn't played that much cornerback in his career, which makes sense. And like, we're wondering with this fucking the amount of money he got, which is top 20 in the league, by the way, or tied for top 20 right now, right? Just like, what were the Jets thinking on this one, right? Like, kind of what my thoughts are like on this one, like, I think Aaron Glenn and Wilkes, who both were cornerbacks players, right? And were basically, and also coach DBs, right? They might know something more than we do. And it was funny because Nania did an article about it because he's trying to fucking figure it out too, right? Basically, like Stevens, like he has all the physical traits, and he's really good at not like removing as much separation as possible. He was top 6 in the league in terms of separation yards last year. Basically, so like, but the thing was, like, he gave up catches on like the 50-50 shit. And like, that's a little concerning because like your job when the ball is thrown at you is to stop it from happening, right? And he was just not very good at that, right? But maybe it's teachable given that he hasn't really had that much life experience at cornerback, even though he has played more cornerback than I could say I ever have. But maybe that's the thinking, like, because also, mind you, like, that position's a confidence position as well, too, right? Balls thrown up, don't be deer in front of headlights, just make a fucking play, right? And maybe some of that can be taught. I don't know, but that's maybe the thinking that's going on there. What are your thoughts? And I'll go to Monty first on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, we talked about this in our chat. Obviously, we went pretty deep into it, but it seems like an overpay unless we're using him in some exotic, creative way, like they use him maybe on some exotic blitz packages. He plays safety or plays safety and backup at corner. Some sort of like off the wall, off the beaten path usage of him. And if he is like a starter at safety, then I could see that. But as a corner, I think if we're just saying that he's a corner, which is kind of what he is, I think it's definitely an overpay. And just to kind of support that, I mean, he was statistically one of the under 51, 107 passer rating, paid as a top 25 corner in the league, sort of a bargain deal, not a $36 million investment, right? The Jets here are very clearly paying for potential, and they're not paying based on on proven. And what have you done for you in the sky? People based on what you think they're gonna be. Maybe if they're good enough, that's the agent's job, is try to get to pay, on what they could be and what they're gonna be. The team's job is to pay based on what is, and what is says this deal's out of line. I mean, you're looking at other corners, Dante Jackson, $6.8 million a year. Christian Fulton at 10 million. Yeah, and then you have some other like proven corners, like the guy who just walked away from us, DJ Reed, who got 60 million a year. I mean, like, if a guy with a subpar resume is getting a contract that's in the same ballpark as Pro Bowl caliber season having players, that's just a red flag that we overpaid to me. And like, I don't know. I don't see it. I think it's a dubious move. I think that we overpaid for a below average starter. And unless they find some way to really, really train this guy up, do something amazing with him, all the signs, in my opinion, point to this being an overpay. I don't like it unless they're able to use him as a safety.
And one thing I'll add to that, if that's okay, before I let you go, adding on this one, but he did have to play strong safety last year, mind you, at one point against the Chargers, it looks like, and that was actually his best coverage day, if that makes sense, overall, which is just interesting. Maybe that's what it is, because, I mean, especially with the other sign that we have.
That's got to be.
Yeah, because his tackling is fantastic, supposedly, right? And that makes sense because it's not ball being thrown at you, right? And he was mostly used when he was safety. It was strong safety, right? And the other signing we did was mostly free safety. And obviously there's another one that goes up with that. But I'll let Adnan go. I apologize, Adnan.
I think that the big thing to me with this move is, and I'm going to say this a lot. I just said it about the offensive side. I'll say that we don't know, right? We don't know what the plan is for him. We don't know how they're going to use him. You look at, and if you say that on the offensive side, they don't have the infrastructure to coach up a quarterback. I don't believe that But if that's something that you want to make the argument on, that's something that you can definitely make an argument on. I think with this signing, like John had alluded to, if you don't trust Aaron Glenn and Wilkes to get the most out of somebody who hasn't played a lot of corner, who was a running back for basically his whole life, and now is transitioning to kind of a new life in the NFL, then, I don't know, what we're doing here. So I think when we look at this signing, it's more of an upside signing. It's a guy who has versatility. It's a guy who they obviously believe they can coach up, who they can use at corner, free safety, strong safety, right? And if he is going to be the strong safety, I think rolling him out there with Cisco, bringing back Adams as your third rotational safety, I think you can do a lot worse. So I'm going to let it play out, see what it looks like, and then kind of take it from there. But, this is the wild card signing, right? I think this is the signing where you say our head coach is a, first round pick, all pro corner, has coached the secondary, has coached the defense. Will's kind of the same path. Dre Bly is there as well, was a very good corner. So, let these guys work and see what they can get out of them. So I'm just going to call this a wild card and really have not a lot to say until we see how it plays out.
I think there's just such little room for leeway. God, I can't talk today. There's just little room for leeway with this signing because it's like he's getting paid right off the bat, as John said, top 25, top 30 money. He's got to be great, and he's never performed at that level. So, like, we're already off the bat, like, expecting that, and even if they get, like, him to improve off of what he was, he still has to improve quite a bit to warrant the amount that we're paying him, so it's just like, there's just a lot there, and there's a lot that's going to be expected of the coaching to get out of this guy. And I don't know if the juice is there, to be squeezed out. So, you do make, you do make good points as far as like, we don't know what the coaches can do, but I'm just making the point that they're going to have to do a lot with this guy for it to be worth it, for it to be worth what we're paying.
Yeah, I'm starting to lean on that too. Once again, we don't know how he's going to be used. It's got to be as a starter because that's starter money right there. I will just echo this too. He's played left and right side of the cornerback side. So, I mean, it could just mean Sauce is going to travel a little bit more. And, we're a little bit hindered with that with DJ Reed because there is an efficiency massive difference. And that was one of the things that I guess Joe Douglas kind of saw and took advantage of when he did sign DJ Reed the first time, because DJ Reed was very similar boat, if that makes sense. Just like it was not really well known how good DJ Reed was until he got here and then he was used properly. And we trusted our defensive staff to figure that out, and they definitely did. Because DJ Reed became a top 10 cornerback in the league and was the most sought out corner in the league. And, so maybe, I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
That's what I'm willing to say, right? We don't know yet. So I'm not going to get too, crazy about this one. Just kind of see how it plays out. And then we go from there.
Right.
And then just being a negative Jet fan real quick, if you look at our history, it's not the greatest. So like you kind of have to err on the side of it's probably not a good signing. So you don't want to overpay. Just looking at the way we've handled shit for pretty much ever, going back across, no matter who the regime was, who the coach was, who the GM was. It's just, the Jets just kind of err on the side of making the wrong move, not the right move. So there's that too.
Excellent sign of confidence.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
like confident.
It's I'm confident in this regime to this point. I like what they've been doing so far, and again, we got to give them the benefit of the doubt, right? And I'm willing to do that, and we'll see how it plays out.
Fair enough. All right, next one, Andre Cisco. A name also I didn't have on my radar is a free safety that came from the Jaguars, or Jaguar, as the British would say. They got
Jaguar.
Jaguar. Yeah, he got 1 year, $10 million, which I guess was a decent chunk of change if you really think about it. I didn't know much about him either. He had a down year too last year, like Stevens did last year, and I should have said that too. But he came from the Jaguars, and he predominantly plays free safety. Just so you guys know, I don't know much about him either. I didn't think that was a big name at the safety market, because although it was kind of barren this year too, right? The safety market in general. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one? I'll go to Adnan first.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. Not this past year, the year before, he had a pretty good season. He's a young guy, played on a horrific Jacksonville defense last year, was banged up a little bit. I think this is a really good signing. He's at the price point, 1 year, 10 million. You're not committed to him long term. He's been a starter in the league since he came into the league. He's also a New York guy. He played at Syracuse, so I think plugging a hole at free safety, I think this is probably the best free safety they've had in years. So I think this is a good move, high upside, low risk. And yeah, I think I think for what it is, it's a pretty good move. And I think it fills the starting free safety role to where you don't have to, be desperate in the draft for a safety.
Go ahead, Monty.
Yeah. I mean, I like it, man. I mean, the kid's had two seasons where he's had 3 or more picks. Coming off of a 4-pick season back in 2023. Regressed a little bit in that regard last year, but still was able to pile up 68 total tackles. I'm sorry, like combination, right? But solo tackles, 44 total tackles. I mean, he's solid. I mean, he's just a solid safety. I think I think he's the epitome of right guy, right price. He's got around, like, if I remember correctly, like around a 60 PFF grade. So I think he's solid enough to do the job. And this is the kind of guy. So, like, comparing to Stevens, right? Like, this is the kind of guy that I think an Aaron Glenn and a Wilkes can train up, get a lot more out of, and then it's totally worth it and might end up being like a steal at that price point. That's the kind of guy that I really like. I like him, and I like the price. I like sniffing that out, looking to teams that are a little bit more depressed, being able, like a Jaguars, being able to see, where do they have talent that's maybe being, flying under the radar. And I think it was just a great move to pick someone like that up. I think he's going to do well, and I'm definitely happy about it. And I think a lot of analysts and a lot of fans would agree with me.
Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't seen any tape. I wouldn't know. But I guess I trust two defensive-minded guys that also played cornerback. Well, both at the college level, at least. Wilkes never played pro. And also we're DB coaches. I guess you just have to. But I will say this about these two signings, right? The one benefit that you have being these two signings, right? You have a fucking solid as fuck linebacking room, and you have amazingness in Sauce and Michael Carter II when healthy. And I have to say when healthy now, because last year he was not healthy. But you at least have those 4 pieces right there. So it does kind of, and obviously like the D-line's one thing and like that's another, but at least you have that, you know what I mean? To kind of, so you don't really have to splooge, I guess, on safety, if that makes sense, right? You do need safety though, because it is important in Aaron Glenn's system, as we've seen. But maybe Stevens is safety also, but I don't know. I just hope that these are the right fits, if that makes sense.
I think you meant to say splurge.
No, I didn't. Did I say splooge or splurge?
You definitely said splooge.
I meant it, dude.
Oh, I know. But
so then why are you trying to correct me being an asshole right now, dude? Why are you being an asshole?
Someone, you can't be the only one the whole show. I mean, we got to switch off a little.
No, I'm supposed to be the only asshole of the show. Let's be real.
I'm
I'm the white
willing.
guy too, and like people hate white
I'm
people
willing
nowadays.
to.
It just makes sense that I'm the hated one in this group.
Yeah, I'm willing to let you be the asshole. That's fine with me. If that's what you want, John. Please, more
I
power
know
to
you got see, like you guys are forgetting, right? Like, you obviously, like we were big fans of wrestlers, which is why like we have like a lot of Ric Flair music and like Macho Man and all that shit. Like the villains were more fun, man. They were more fun. And I just like if I had to be a professional wrestler, right? I think I just would have
be a heel.
Yeah, I think so. You know what I mean? I just think that's how that would work for me. And like, if that's my role in this show, like, so fucking be it, right? But anyway, more safety news. This one actually is one of our homegrown talents. Tony Adams was put on tender. So basically, he's a restricted free agent now. So someone could match, someone could make an offer to him still, and we can match it if we want to. And I think there's some comp back for that. But I think it's like a second, right? Or maybe a third in this situation. I'm not 100% sure because this is like very similar to what we did with Robbie Anderson way back in the day. And even Bryce Huff before, anyway. But basically he's 1 year, $3.2 million. It's nice to have him back. I thought he was a good culture guy too. And also like he kind of had some more in since you lost Ashton Davis as well. You don't really have that many safeties except for some of the undrafted and late drafted guys. You guys happy with Tony Adams being back?
Yeah, I think especially if you look at the role now, he's not a starting safety in the NFL, right? But a rotational guy, someone as your third safety, someone that can play some exotic looks, somebody that can provide, quality depth for 1 year, 3.2 million. Like you said, good locker room guy. I have no problem with this deal. It's good to bring back homegrown guys, especially on a very reasonable contract. So I think this is a smart move and no problems with it whatsoever.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I gotta kind of agree with him as me liking him as a third safety, even though he may end up starting a little bit more than we probably are projecting here. But I like for the most part, with the exception of the Stevens signing, I like these Jets contracts because they are not frugal, but they are measured, and we're not breaking the bank out here. And that's what I like, because I think at this point we should just be doing the best we can to fill positions with the best possible talent at the best prices, and then we see where we need, and then we can spend where we need. I'm glad that we're not just running out the gate ripping off 50, 60 million, here and another 40 million there. You know what I mean? Like I said, other than the Stevens contract, I think the Jets have been very measured. I think they've been very thoughtful in their approach, dare I say methodical for once. And I hope that keeps up. And I think this is kind of a continuation of that. It's like he's a decent enough guy. We know what he is. He's pretty cheap. This is not going to really hurt us in any way, money wise. As long as he stays healthy the whole season, I think it's worth the $3 million.
One thing I will say about Tony Adams, I thought he was better when Whitehead was back there at free safety, and Tony Adams. It was weird last year at the safety position because they got so banged up so many freaking times. Like they were moving around a whole bunch, and I think that kind of screwed up his season last year a little bit. Not having Whitehead, even though Whitehead, say what you will, wasn't very good his last year and wasn't really good the first year either. We had him, right? Except for that Bills game where he had 3 picks, which is kind of unbelievable when you really think about it. But there wasn't really that much experience in that safety room last year. And also last year was just a fucking disaster for the whole defense, right?
Yeah.
I just don't know. Part of me thinks that Adams, I think Tony Adams right now, I think it's slotted as Tony Adams is the strong safety and Cisco's the free safety, and Stevens is going to be your cornerback too on the outside.
Yep.
I just see that as it is right now, and the only things that are really missing on that defense are probably D tackle and maybe another D tackle depth, right? and another edge guy, right? But I don't know what this defense is really going to look like because it's not really. This is not the solid defense where it's 4-man front,
No.
No, well, they're going to blitz a lot, right? The history of Wilkes and Glenn, but Wilkes more so is very aggressive. Lots of cover 1, cover 0, lots of blitzing. So it's going to be a completely different defense than what we've seen, as opposed to the 4-man rush, cover 3 behind it. So hopefully these guys can hold up, and this might be a chance for Sauce to really, really shine. So, definitely going to be interesting.
Quincy's, it's a big change from 7 and coverage.
A lot. Quincy's going to rush the fucking quarterback a lot. And when he rushes the quarterback, he fucking gets there and destroys him.
Yeah.
If he's like some of the best highlights we've had last couple of years are just Quincy sacks, right? Like the Russell Wilson sack and the Detroit and the Denver game, and I just recall Quincy just really hitting quarterbacks really hard, like the way it was done in the 80s and 90s.
I'll take it.
I'll take it too. Anyway, we got some more signings. These are kind of more low-hanging fruits. I kind of grouped them all together, if that's okay with everybody. But basically, we're going to go through. They also signed Rashad Weaver, who's an edge guy. Chukwuma Okorafor, right tackle. Josh, who might be a starter. I think he's not, but I put him in this group because I just don't know what the contract details are. Josh Myers, a center. And Isaiah Oliver, a DB. That one name's fucking hard, but I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts on any of this right now? Because I don't really know much about these guys either.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, he had what 60 starts so far. He's 27 years old. Talking about Chukwuma. As far as on the official depth chart for the New York Jets, as it's listed on ESPN, I mean, he's the right tackle. It's because who's behind him? Carter Warren, Zach Bailey. There isn't a depth of talent, of guys that you really want playing tackle for you behind him or behind Olu, really. So, I think for lack of a better, option, I think he is the guy at this point, unless this means we're going to be gunning for one in the draft, and then maybe we do another Olu situation where this guy starts and then hands the baton off later on. Maybe they do something like that. But, we got to see the contract details to really know for sure, as you mentioned, John. But I think as it stands with, again, age, size, how early that we're addressing this, the fact that newer teams tend to prioritize getting their O-line straightened out, or newer regimes. I think he is the starter at right tackle until further notice. So, welcome to the team.
Also, what a set of names for our tackles, right? I mean, Olu is Olumuyiwa, Anthony Fashanu, and then we've got this too. I think they're both Nigerian names, but I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to look that up right now, just so I can.
And then we also have Obina Eze.
Oh God, yeah. All right, Adnan, go.
I think Okorafor, interesting right tackle, probably a stopgap guy, competition. The tackle market is very bare. So at least this allows him to have somebody with starting experience who's better than Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, whomever else you want to name. So give it a shot, see what happens. I'm sure they'll be taking a tackle in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Josh Myers is interesting. Started for the Packers the past couple of years at center. Probably more of a depth signing. Probably be able to back up Tippmann at center. Also be able to play some guard. So I think that's the perfect depth signing. A lot of experience. He was also Justin Fields center at Ohio State. So another Justin Fields connection. You look at what's that?
Was he really?
Yeah. Oh. You look at Weaver, 4th round guy, only played I think 3 or 4 games last year, if that. had a couple of sacks, handful of sacks. He's a guy who may not even make it out of camp, but you see what you have. You see what you have him on the edge, and you got to feel the team somehow. So just kind of a flyer on him. And Oliver was here last year, played all 17 games. Versatile, can play safety, can play corner, can play in the slot. So just kind of another depth guy. Like all of those signings, not a lot of money. It's kind of the things, like Monty had said, you're not breaking the bank to get these guys, so might as well see what you have with them.
There's no way they'd put Myers in at center, right? And then have fucking Tippmann go back to guard.
I mean, people have been saying that could be a possibility, but I just think, to me, that just sounds like fan fiction.
Well,
that's the question, just because he has a lot of snaps at center, and they're about the same caliber in terms of coming out of college.
Rosenblatt has been intimating that, could there be a shakeup? Could there be movement? I think what you might end up doing, honestly, is see if Myers can play guard, have him play guard, and then move AVT to right tackle. That's I think because I don't think you want to move Tippmann from center. I think he's just too valuable there. He was a top 10 center in the NFL last year.
Yeah, like I said to you guys, though, I definitely think that if you're smart enough and you're well researched enough to know that Tippmann is a viable tackle option and has played, serviceably well at the tackle position. I think you also know that he's also been injured multiple times playing tackle. And I think you want to maybe stay away from that if you can. I think the line was as good as it's looked in a very long time, with most of the pieces that are still there from last year playing in their natural positions. And I don't think that upsetting that, especially as a new regime coming in, is good practice. But, they're the coaches. I'm not. So we'll see. I mean, it's totally possible, but it just, to me, it feels like just some fan speculation, fan fiction stuff to just totally shake up the O-line like that, just, because we got some other pieces. But I mean, it could be, and one thing I wanted to say about Weaver, I think Weaver, a signing like that is kind of indicative of, a little bit of, we aren't going to be relying as much on the D-line as we have in prior years, because the D-line under Saleh, you really needed quality all the time on that D-line. Now that we'll be blitzing from, left, right, center, 6 ways to Sunday, I think that becomes a little bit less important. You can get away with, having a guy like Weaver rotating in and not needing to always have that pressure being generated predominantly by the front four.
Yeah, I will just also say this: of the 28 centers that took, I guess, 600 plus snaps last year, he was the second worst graded center per PFF. Myers, yeah, and obviously Tippmann was number 6.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Depth signing in case shit hits the fan with Tippmann, right?
Probably.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So good time to transition because we hit the right number on the clock, so I can remember the timestamp. So this is the following list of Jets that were Jets last year that are on new teams. Devontae Adams, who's a Ram now. Kinlaw, he's a Commander, right? Okay.
See ya.
Yeah, see ya. DJ Reed is a Lion. Morgan Moses, a fucking Patriot. Hassan Reddick is a
he went to the Bucks, yeah.
Okay. Solomon Thomas is now a Cowboy. Ashton Davis is a Dolphin. And Brandon Echols is a Steeler. I think I got that right without looking.
Yeah, and one other thing just happened. Mike Williams signed back with the Chargers for 1 year. So 1 year, $6 million deal.
That's cute. All right. I mean, yeah, he wasn't on the Jets at the end of the, so I didn't feel like I needed to get that, but okay. So he's with the Chargers again?
I mean, that
continuity for her.
Yeah, that literally happened 2 minutes ago, so it wasn't something that we even knew. So
I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, go somewhere that and see what
happens. Of these names, which one stings the most?
Oof.
I think
So
Moses.
it's a
for
tie,
me.
but it's a tie for me between Moses and Reed.
I think Reed was already. We knew that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I think for me.
Yeah, we knew it wasn't gonna happen, but it's just like it's the whole like it's what we're paying for Stevens, it's what the
Yeah,
Lions
it
were
was $4
able to
million
pay.
more. Yeah,
It's what the Lions were able to get Reed for. It's we know what Reed is and his level of talent. Like, it feels like such a step back in a situation where we didn't necessarily have to. Like, if this was a little bit better of a team with a little bit more of a that had a little bit more. I don't
yeah.
think we would have lost, someone of that for such a paltry sum.
So one thing.
But Moses left and then came back and he wanted to be here and, he was good and he was good here. And we thought that, the line looked good and one of those missing pieces that we needed. So it's definitely also a pretty big sting. But for me, it's those two kind of somewhat close.
So
Yeah, and DJ Reed's only a year older than Brandon Stevens, just so everyone knows.
Well, I would also
Right.
say one other thing, John, and this is something that you have been, talking about and that you've been right on, with the analytical split with DJ Reed being on the left side, on the right side. Like, Glenn and Wilkes could have looked at it and kind of said, hey, listen, man, we need somebody that's more versatile. We can't just park this guy on one side of the defense and leave him there. Right. So I think like there are reasons for it. I don't think Devontae was ever coming back. And what I find interesting about Devontae really quick is like he wanted the West Coast so badly, he didn't even wait for Rodgers to sign. He didn't even wait to be like, hey, maybe Rodgers and I can go with him. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm going.
He's done with Rodgers after what just happened, man.
Yeah. So he's like, he didn't even wait. Like he signed on Sunday, So I found that interesting. But I'll also say what is, in conjunction with losing Reed, I think Echols was so underrated, man. And if you could have brought him back to start as your corner two and then maybe draft someone later or bring in some competition for him, I think that would have been, if they had been able to keep him on the cheap and also have Stevens and have some competition there, I think that would have left a better taste in everybody's mouth. But, that one kind of stings for me a little bit too because I just thought he was such a good player when he played.
Yeah, and he was getting picks too. It's something that Monty's always about, that you can't teach turnovers, basically. Yeah, that one's. I think Moses stung the most for me of all of them, just because, like, I mean, God, great locker room guy. Would have been continuity on the best line that we've had since the Rex era, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like the perfect
the uncertainty
veteran
of that position, you know what I mean? Really.
Yeah. And perfect veteran guy for a young offensive line, but the Patriots also paid him. I think they gave him a 3-year deal, right? So they paid him. They didn't just sign him like a 1-year throwaway deal.
Yeah, that was the other thing that was like super interesting. I mean, Moses he got pretty good money too.
Yeah, that's right.
He got 3 years, 24. That's what he got.
Yeah,
which is a lot for a 34-year-old.
That's what I'm saying. 34 years old. That's so. I think like the Jets were never gonna if they could have brought it back for 1 year, I think they would have done it.
God,
but like a contract like that,
he's younger than us, and he just looks like a man.
No, he's a beast.
That's how all these guys, like these NFL guys, bro, once they hit like 27, they all look like they're 40, but also they also look 27 at the same time. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Yeah, I mean, that's just playing football in the league. The Devontae one is interesting. I mean, actually, this is kind of my hot take. It might be a signal that Rodgers knows that he ain't going to come back and do this again.
What's
I
that?
mean, they talk.
Maybe
So
Rodgers retiring after this. You know what I mean? Like he's just gonna go out. Like this.
I could see them talking and him being like, "Yo, man, listen, just between us, keep this between us. You're my boy. You came over here for me, so I want to do you a solid. I ain't going back to football, or I ain't going over to the Raiders, or I ain't, whatever the case may be." And he just let them know up front, and then
Because there's only two teams that are really in contention for Rodgers at this point, right? It's the Giants
and the Steelers.
The Steelers,
Well,
right? And now Russell Wilson supposedly is interviewing with the Browns.
Yeah, he's going to meet with the Browns, but also there is some talk about the Vikings potentially as well. That was in the Athletic.
No, but didn't they just settle everything with who did they just didn't they just sign somebody?
Not a quarterback, I don't think, Minnesota.
Oh.
No, I mean McCarthy now is the one, right,
Yeah.
to command what is a ready football team to win, right? They're definitely more proven ready than we were when Rodgers came here, right? It just if he goes to the Vikings, like God, he's gonna win a fucking Super Bowl. I just fucking know it, man. Like he's gonna fulfill the prophecy. You come from Green Bay, you come here, then you go to Minnesota and you do really well. And Minnesota's stacked, man. Like Aaron Jones came back. They signed him. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football. You could argue with Chase, but it's one of those two, right? It doesn't matter who you pick. They're both freaking ridiculous talents.
Hell yeah.
Right? And then Jordan Addison's fucking nasty too, and he stretches the field. And you got Hawkinson.
And Hawkinson will be healthy. He was banged up.
I know he was banged up last year. That's scary.
And then you get Darisaw back at left tackle. Like they're really good, man. And Kevin O'Connell is.
But they did lose their right tackle, Cam Robinson filled in last year at left tackle. That's right. And
yeah. So I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Did you see the picture of him? Somebody he's standing on the beach, just wrapped in a towel. Yeah, it's like just contemplating.
I think it's a sign that maybe he's just gonna hang it up, right? I mean, he's at the. I mean, does he want to move again? I mean, the Giants would make sense. He wouldn't have to sell his house or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Like he just the practice facilities. Well, I guess it's practice.
I mean, in reality, these guys are so rich, dude, that it doesn't matter. They can just kind of have
dude.
They pay for all that, bro. You could rent that's like a couple $100,000 a year rental, and be living in the lap of luxury, especially in a city like Pittsburgh.
And you look at Rodgers, he's also single and doesn't have any kids. So he's not uprooting a family. He's not doing any of that. I think he's going to come back because, again, I don't think he wants his career to go
out like that. Yeah.
Like last year and then the year before. So I think he has a lot of motivation to come back. If I were him, I'm on the phone with Minnesota right now. And I'm like, listen, I don't need money. I'm one of the. I made a ton of money. Let's get this done.
Yeah, let me finish this Brett Favre story arc.
Right, and let McCarthy have another year to learn from a Hall of Fame guy. Give another year of recovery for the injury, and then let him take over in 2026. If I'm the Vikings, like that's too good of a deal for me to pass up.
Yeah. But I mean, then why didn't Rodgers just really take a discount? You know what I mean, for us, right? Like, just
they didn't want him.
Yeah, but I don't think they.
From what I understand, we didn't want him.
About last year, after like the season that happened with before. You know what I mean?
Because why would we have offered it? Why would we have offered that?
Yeah, I mean, he was under contract, and the dead cap is the dead cap. Like that isn't changing.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, but he could switch to done like what Manning did with his Denver contract, right? I don't know.
Didn't he do that after he already won the Super Bowl?
No. So basically, Peyton Manning had like a down year after the fucking crazy year that he had, right? And then basically he took a discount, basically to do it one more year, essentially.
Yeah, I don't really.
And he won the Super Bowl, and then he rode off to the sunset, John Elway style.
Yeah, I'm not worried about any of that.
Which is also ironic too, because Peyton Manning and Elway also fell similar paths. Both were drafted by the Colts and ended up riding into the sunset with the Broncos. God, it's fucking beautiful, isn't it? If you really think about it, because Elway, the whole Elway, thing with the draft, he didn't want to go to the Baltimore Colts at the time.
Of all the teams and all the paths you can go, it's crazy that you've had already multiple quarterbacks kind of follow the exact same path, between Favre and his path and Elway.
Yeah, the ones we
his
just
path.
mentioned.
Yeah.
There's no other pattern though like that, right? There's no other path.
I'm sure you could find it if you analyzed it, but not of the greats like that. Not of the all-time top 10 guys like that.
Okay, fair enough. I think the best way to do this last little segment before we can kind of just talk about free agency in general and the landscape and kind of what we noticed, because yes, this isn't the Jets that we're talking about. It's all the other fucking teams and all the other moves that they fucking did, but it does matter because we're going to have to play these teams at some point, right? What did you guys see in free agency, before we do like a winners and losers thing, and everyone will do 1 and 1, right? What did you see that was of interest to you guys, I guess, in the free agency landscape? And I'll start with Adnan because he looks like he's so ready to do it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fascinated with, Geno Smith going back, playing with Pete Carroll for another couple of years. Like, I think that's really interesting. That impacts, like, Pete Carroll's a win now coach. Geno's a win now quarterback. Like, at 7 now, are you drafting Shedeur Sanders if he falls? Are you drafting Ashton Genty? Are you drafting best wide receiver available? Are you drafting the right? Because, like, I don't think Pete Carroll is in this to develop a quarterback, or you would have found a way to just make sure you get either Shedeur or Cam Ward and develop.
They have 6, by the way, not 7.
Right, 6, right? The Jets have 7. My bad, yeah. But, like, I also think that Darnold to the Seahawks, like, that's really interesting to me. That contract is a mirror image of the Baker contract. Same exact thing, just adjusted for, inflation and a higher cap. I think that's going to be interesting. I think we'll really see what Sam Darnold is now because, no DK Metcalf, no Lockett. Yeah, no Lockett, no Metcalf. The offensive line isn't very good. So we'll see if Darnold was a function of the Vikings or, if he's a function of Darnold. So that'll be really interesting to me. The Bears and the Patriots spent a lot of money. Let's see how that plays out. But I think those are kind of my interesting things.
Seahawks O-line, yeah, I guess it was kind of bad, but what's his face? Is it Charles Cross that was there? Remember when I told you guys I met George Fan and I was kind of saying, are you going to start over Cross because he ain't that good? And he was like, nah, he's all right. And then Cross had a really good year.
Yeah, no,
we'll
see.
But they can run the ball.
Kenneth Walker and what's his name?
Yeah, Ken Walker's a beast.
Zach Charbonnet.
Charbonnet, yeah, he's going to be good too. He stepped up. I had him in fantasy last year, so I was watching him closely. Anytime.
So you don't have to talk about
anytime, shut up, John. Anytime that this guy got the ball, got the starting duties, he just absolutely went apeshit. Anytime.
Yeah, but he didn't win you a league, so.
He could have.
Yeah, but he didn't.
He could have.
I won 2 of my leagues. 2 of my 4 leagues.
You play against bums, bro. I play against people who actually know football. You play against people who know less than you in football. Stop.
That's not true at all. I mean, well, that may be true. That's why I won. But
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Also, our one fantasy bet the only one that we've ever done, I won that bet. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, off like the most luck ever. You guys like the
luck? You talked about Baker that was a new situation with Mike Evans, and I won that bet.
But there was injury involved
with Ayuk. He mostly played the whole season that year, and he was second team All Pro. But Mike Evans had more stats.
He played more games.
Mike Evans was. I won that bet. Don't matter.
He played more games. Like if they had played the same amount of game, they were on pace. They were literally like 14 and 15 or like 10 and 11 or something like that. They were one place apart in there. Yeah, it's like it's like betting that it's like me betting it's going to be 70 degrees out, and you bet that it's 68, and you win. Great,
Well, I won.
great. You killed it, bro.
Hey
you
guys,
crushed it.
listen to get us back on track. Funny, maybe interesting signing. Mac Jones just signed with the 49ers. So that's it.
Pocket passer like Birdie.
And also one other interesting thing, really quick: Zach Wilson to the Dolphins.
Yeah, we saw.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
He's gonna love those fucking Cougars down there. Don't age. You know what I mean?
that is Cougar Central for him.
Yeah,
so,
and listen, with Tua's injury history, he
he's
may
gonna
get a
play a
chance
couple
to
games.
play. You know,
his
his contract was
definitely
interesting. He's got incentives if he plays, he can make up to 10 mil or some shit like that. Like I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. But back to, I guess, what we were saying before, with the like kind of teams and how they're doing. I like what Adnan, you mentioned it too. Chicago, they completely rebuilt their offensive line pretty much, and they added Odingbo, Dio Odingbo, the edge rusher.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think they kind of are learning from their mistakes. I think there's a lot of pressure for them to succeed, especially on that GM. I mean, it's make or break time. They kind of similar situation to where Joe Douglas and company were at last season, but they actually have a franchise quarterback. And we'll see how that turns out. But I think the Bears have stepped up a lot, and I obviously I like the Commanders a lot. I mean, they wowed everyone last year. What a difference! What a difference! The Tunsil trade. I mean, what a difference! A good owner, and they got Debo Samuel for a song and a dance. You know what I mean? Like, come on! Like they're stacked now. They got Tunsil. They're good. They're running. Their running situation's pretty good. And then you got Debo on one side, and you got Terry McLaurin on the other. Like. And then Jaden Daniels just totally broke out last year. Like, those are I think the two big winners so far in free agency.
Yeah, they were able to re-sign a lot of guys too, and I think it's safe to say those two teams won free agency, if that made sense. So maybe we don't have to do that segment there. A couple ones are very interesting for me. So obviously Pittsburgh traded for Metcalf, right? And you figured like Russell Wilson was a lock to stay there, right? Because like DK had the most success with Russell, right? But now Russell's like shopping around like Cleveland, like I don't know if they're bringing him fucking back, right? And then obviously like Rodgers supposedly was like that was one of the teams that he was considering. And interesting enough, number 12 is not retired for the Steelers. They've only retired 3 numbers ever. And Terry Bradshaw's number 12 was not. So maybe he has to go back to 12 to be good again. It's like Jordan was wearing 45. He had to go back to 23, right? Blah, blah, blah. Like, so I thought that was very interesting. They trade for Metcalf, but like that's not locked in, right? The Niners looking like on total rebuild, but really they're just trying to get younger. And like, I didn't think they were in that bad cap hell, but I guess they are, because they're basically dismantling the whole fucking team, right? And now like Ayuk's supposedly on the trade block too, but Christian McCaffrey's still there, which is very interesting. You think of all the ones you would get rid of, it'd be Christian McCaffrey, so you can keep the rest of it and just have anybody run back there, right? So I thought that was very interesting. I mean, the Rams are going to go Puka and fucking Devontae. Those two have such good footwork. Like, my God.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's weird. And then the other thing I thought that was interesting was that Hopkins went to the Ravens, which makes a lot of sense for them to have a real go-to guy in the receiving game, because I didn't think Zay Flowers was it. He's just too small, in my opinion, for that.
I think they love old, washed-up receivers in Baltimore. That's
kind of weird one.
I think that's what it is. I mean, Odell Beckham, they've done this before. They bring in some guy who was a super stud and is just older and past his prime. I think he looked absolutely cooked in the Super Bowl. And I don't know. I think Hopkins is on his way out. And just a quick side note, I think it's fucking incredible that the Steelers have been such a good perennially good organization that they didn't feel the need to retire Terry Bradshaw's number after all them damn Super Bowls and AFC and championships that he was able to bring them to.
Yeah, they're really well. They have so many names that they can fucking retire, dude. They have. So
I know.
It's like Mean Joe Green. I think it's Lambert, and that's it. But like, here's what I thought was very interesting about free agency. The wide receiver market, you would have thought a lot of names would have got snatched up in wide receiver marketville, right? We didn't really see that many deals go out on the wide receiver market. Like we saw a Christian Kirk trade, right? Mm-hmm. We saw Cup get cut, right? We saw Debo get traded, right? We got DK traded, and then we got back, right? But in terms of the names and Higgins was tagged, right? But we all kind of knew that already. But else than that, like, my God, there are some fucking names of like old fantasy darlings in the wide receiver market right now. There's Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett. Those are the names.
I know. Those are all at this point just names.
Right, exactly.
A lot of those guys have talent, but they can't do it for a full season anymore. I think that's what you're seeing there. I think every one of those guys will absolutely can go and just take over a game still, but they just can't do it for a full season anymore. I'm pretty sure. Maybe Amari Cooper. That's probably one of the ones I think is still kind of, ageless wonder. And Brandon Cooks, if he can stay healthy, is still pretty solid. But he's shifted to a high-end wide receiver.
Yeah, what about Tyler Lockett? Like, I like Tyler Lockett, man. And
he was steady Eddie, man. I liked him a lot too.
Yeah. I think. I mean, look, Cooper's only 30 years old. I mean, he's going to be 31 in June. So I guess that's a little bit. From the Jets perspective,
Cooper, by the way, $11 million projection for his contract.
Yeah, which I think is a little crazy. Yeah. But I think that from a Jets perspective, I just don't think any of these ages line up with what they're looking to do, to be honest. Like, I don't think they want to bring in older guys. Now, if they can get one of these guys, I'm like, close to a league minimum deal, a week before the draft. But I just don't think they're looking to bring in guys that have, mileage. I think they're looking for guys on their second contract. I think they're looking for younger guys. So it's really interesting because the Jets could use two of these guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Tim Patrick's still out there, for example.
Yeah, Tim Patrick's an interesting one. I could see them sign him. But
he makes more sense to me than those guys.
Yeah.
I need a guy because Lazard's going to be out too, I think, right? In the end.
Yeah, we need two guys. We need two.
I mean, if you go, Tim Patrick is 31. He'll be 32 in November. But, if you go Tim Patrick and Amari Cooper, if you can get them on cheap deals, because you got to fill this wide receiver room.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have multiple picks in the first 3-4 rounds to do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the place where you wanna attack. But
it's a lot. It's weird. This draft, I know we keep talking about Tyler Warren, but you could get the top receiver if you really wanted to at pick 7. You really could.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I agree, but I think when you look at it from
Travis Hunter, right? Yeah.
Well, from a real value perspective, Ted McMillan is the number one, or Marcus Golden from Texas is flying up draft boards.
No, it's McMillan. It's McMillan still.
Buka,
Well, I think it depends on the type of. I think it depends on the type of receiver that you want, right? And I also think I don't think these guys are. The value is there to take them at 7. If you're going to go offensive playmaker at 7, go Tyler Warren because he's the guy that can make a difference there. But you have to be able to fill the wide receiver room. I wouldn't be shocked with the way things are going now if they just bring Lazard back for a year. Because I think he's with the contract he's already on. I think he's a better option than who are you going to pay.
Well, all right. So hypothetical here, if you do that, right, you need a slot, right? Because you can't just roll with Gibson, Lazard, and fucking Garrett Wilson.
No, that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying, like, maybe in the second round you go receiver, maybe in the third round. Right? Also in the second round, you look at
that's where Tyler Lockett makes a lot of sense. That's a fucking great slot receiver, you know?
Right. No, dude, I get it, man. I get it. I'm not saying they will or they won't. I'm just saying that based on what they're doing now, they aren't signing older guys. That's what I'm saying. Right? And like, it's a trend in pretty much every signing they've made. So maybe they'll deviate from that if they can get these guys ultra cheap. But Lockett will end up having suitors, especially on a contending team, somebody that needs a veteran presence at wide receiver. He can return punts a little bit too. So, I just think like it'll be interesting to see what they do at receiver.
Lockett does not drop balls though. His hands are almost as good as fucking Larry Fitzgerald's.
Dude, listen, he's a very good player. I'm not saying that the Jets couldn't use him. I'm just saying I don't know like what their real strategy is in terms of will they deviate from saying we're signing guys on their first and second on their second contracts, 27 years old and younger, right? We just don't know if they'll deviate from that because they haven't yet.
Yeah, and also the other thing is if they need to fill D tackle, like there's a lot of names you could start getting rotational guys with, but you're gonna need they're gonna have to draft a D tackle too.
Yeah. And I think like when you look at the Jets, right, picking early in the second round, there's so much depth in this draft at defensive tackle, even tight end, wide receiver. If somebody's dying for one of these running backs, the Jets don't need a running back. You can pick up an extra third rounder, maybe move down, pick up an extra second rounder from a team that has two. I think they have a lot of flexibility to move if they really wanted to. So, I think that we need to look at this just on, May 1st or whatever and see what it looks like before being able to make any determinations.
The last name I want to mention as a free agent, because we did talk about edge guys a little bit, but I think one name that made the most sense, and we put this in our secret chat that nobody knows about, right? Zadarius Smith as a rotational edge guy. I mean, that kind of makes a lot of fucking sense because he filled in for Hutchinson. He got picked up, traded for last year to replace the Hutchinson hole. And by the way, like Hutchinson's stats last year, that was your depoy runaway last year. Before the
I know.
You really,
sad. So sad.
Almost 50% of his true pass sets. That's fucking.
I felt bad for him when he went down.
Yeah, and it was a bad injury too.
Bad injury, yeah. But Zadarius Smith makes sense. I mean, that's an Aaron Glenn signing. He's like, I need an edge guy, and he did come through last year. I think he had like 10 sacks last year.
Yeah, but again, you look at it. He's gonna be, 33 in September. On September 8th, basically the day the season starts. And I also feel like guys at that age, they're going to want to go to contenders. Like Zadarius Smith will have a market at some point with a team, with a contender that's like, hey, listen, can never have enough depth at edge. You look, I hate to say, but look at Buffalo. They could say, listen, we have Bosa, injury concern. We can, provide you with an opportunity to win. So I think they're just a lot of moving parts with these older guys. And I just don't know if one, the Jets are going to go in that direction. And secondly, if they'll want to be a part of a team that, isn't on a winning track probably in 2025, at least to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, the job's a job though.
Yeah, but again, I'm sure they'll have other suitors, right? Like the Jets aren't going to be the only ones to be interested if they even are.
Right, but Zadarius Smith had success with Aaron Glenn, just for example, right?
But he's also had success without Aaron Glenn. He's a very good player, so.
I just don't know. I guess also the one move that I thought was very interesting was the Joey Bosa acquisition by our rivals from the north. That scares me a little bit.
Scares me a lot. They're going to be good, man. But
he never is healthy anymore. It's kind of like a Von Miller situation, but reverse. Von Miller was always healthy pretty much going into there, and then he got unhealthy. And Joey Bosa is a very scary man. And also, I'm very curious that didn't go to San Francisco.
Well, San Francisco is in full rebuild mode, and they're trying to be
Right,
light
but
on
is
the
that
cap.
cap hit though? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I think that
I think they're trying to be light on the cap right now.
yeah, and I think I read something where the Niners offer was nowhere near the Buffalo offer. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure they were in on it. They just, are, they're being a little tight right now. They're letting players go left and right. Honestly, if I had to pick a big loser in this free agency, it would be San Fran, just because the only thing they're really gaining is cap. They're not really like, they lost Juice, they lost, they lost a bunch of people, and it's just I don't know. I feel bad for them because it's like I felt like they weren't that far away, and then all of a sudden now they're really far away.
Yeah, and one other name I want to echo is available. If you wanted to reunite with Fatukasi, who could play like the nose a little bit, that would be interesting.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm just like looking right now, like God, yeah, and because he's a Jet drafty, and then he went to Jacksonville, and last year he was with Houston, didn't have such a great year last year.
Yeah, I mean
he's big fat body though.
Yeah, he's about to turn 31, so I think with all of this, we really do have to take age into consideration, because I feel like if they were looking at this free agency cycle and saying we need to bring in players that can help us win right now, they'd be signing some older guys immediately, right? I think they're looking right now to kind of fill the roster and make sure they aren't desperate going into the draft. I think that's kind of the goal.
That is true, which is why DT needs to get filled at some fucking point, though. Like, because, as you said, I mean, like, they're probably going to draft one, right? Maybe it's Mason Graham if he falls, right, to 7. Maybe it's second round at this point. Maybe there's a trade back situation, try to get another second out of it in case the quarterbacks fall.
Yeah, or the running backs.
Possible. It's so, and I will echo this again, free agency is not over by any fucking means right now.
Yeah, it's
probably next week we're going to have to do another episode because there's going to be some names coming off the board.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the wide receiver landscape, because nothing happened there.
Yeah.
And the Jets are going to need one, right? So I just don't, and it's going to continue for a while. Free agency, like, yes, it just officially opened up today, right? If that makes sense, but like all the big contract, the big moves would have already happened, right? Because everything's like pretty much pre-negotiated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting because it's going to tell you a little bit more about, and also tight ends. Nothing happened in tight ends in the free agency outside of Evan Ingram. Like, nothing happened at tight end, right?
Yeah, not a lot out there though.
Not a lot out there. Well, Conklin's still out there.
I don't know, man. Like, we've seen that movie before.
I know. All right, I think it's a good time to go to final thoughts. Adnan, why don't you go into it since you love talking about that old movie?
Yeah, I think I'll keep it short. We've talked a lot today. I would just say, to Jet fans, just try and let this play out and see what moves are made. Like John said, it's only the third day of free agency in terms of the legal tampering period. Free agency officially opened at 4 p.m. today, right? So let's just see what they do. Give them an opportunity to build the roster. Let them get through the draft before saying 3-14, 2-15. Are they ever going to win a game? Can't wait till this regime is fired in a year and a half, right? Let's see what they have and then take it from there. You have to be willing to, I think, give the benefit of the doubt to a brand new regime, and we can have really candid conversations, like I said, on March 1st, March 2nd, after the draft, after free agency is really over. So I would just kind of relax, take a deep breath, let this thing breathe, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, so it looks like the Jets have restructured or are on their way to restructuring this team with with an eye towards the future, but at the same time in a way that'll influence the present too. Glenn did say that they want to win right now. They want to be competitive right now. He wants to build a more physical organization, it seems like the Lions were. I think the roster on paper is decidedly a lot less star-studded than last year's roster, but it might end up being, greater than, I guess, the sum of its parts. Hopefully, if the new pieces click together. We've given ourselves a good platform to improve and to do something. Like, we have a nice young quarterback with unique talents. We have an offensive line that's still pretty decent and solid, and it's got some good core pieces to it. Our defense still has some pieces and still talented. I mean, us New Yorkers at this time, we're pretty much out of patience because of the way this team has been run and mismanaged for so long. But I think maybe we can do something here. It looks like we're making the best moves available within reason and within the cap space. But unfortunately, I did run kind of a just an ask into some different AIs, and just because that stuff's fun to me. I work with AIs at work and stuff like that, and I pretty much asked the AI based on thinking as a sports analyst and NFL GM and coach, and based on the current makeup of what it knows, NFL teams that are good, the things that they do and excel at, and just a whole bunch of factors I typed in to kind of give it a more precise prompt. And I asked it to return to me a percentage of the chance that the Jets would be a successful competitive team. And it said that the Jets have a roughly 50% chance of achieving competitive status, actually 45% chance of achieving competitive status in 2025. So it's not good. I mean, but I mean, it's still around a coin flip, which is not too bad. It's actually, it's better than I would have given it, man. I would have given it like a 35-40%, but if they're saying 45%, that's fine. I think that's a good number I can deal with. I would much rather prefer like 60, obviously, but what are you going to do? It's the Jets.
What do you think our odds were for that coin flip that you're talking about these last couple of years? They must have been way higher, given that we had such high Super Bowl odds. But
so much, all the talent and all that. I'm sure they
would. Just a competitive thing that you were asking, right? Like, it was definitely like 75% plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like maybe closer to 100. Like, we're not even thinking about it, but like, no, it's the fucking Jets. We're fucking cursed. You don't have to say anything. Like, I mean, I'm okay with it. Obviously, I didn't think a big name splash was going to happen by any means in this one. No. I guess Justin Fields is the biggest name splash that we had, right? Because it is a name regardless. It's Ohio State quarterback, so obviously the history of drafted Ohio State quarterbacks is just amazing, right? I'm trying to get hyped about it. I'm not as hyped about it as I think I could be, and I think it's okay, given that there's definitely some roads that we can go with quarterback, whether one of those guys falls to us this year or next year's draft, which is absolutely loaded at quarterback, and it's a 2-year deal, and we still have Tyrod. So I just don't know. I just hope the team doesn't get frustrated. The Breeses, the Garretts, the Sauces, the Jamiens, I guess Will McDonald stuck with us for a while, right? So I guess we'll fuck around and find out and see. It just, I don't know. There's still more days to come. True GMs and teams that do really well in free agency don't really make those splashes on the first days, if that makes sense. The good ones typically find the value later on versus getting these bidding wars that happens like right around now. Mm-hmm. So although last year the Commanders went big early and they seemed to turn it around pretty damn good, but they had a lot of money to work with. And they got really lucky in the draft with Jaden Daniels. I mean, that guy's a fucking talent.
Yeah, I mean, that was the difference.
That was really the difference maker.
That was really the difference maker, correct. because the defense wasn't anything special last year, right? And the offense really ran through him. And there were some pieces there already, right? But that's about it. And they bulked up, and I'm really happy for that fan base because that stadium, when I went, was dog shit, and they need a new stadium so fucking bad. But yeah, just remember, people, have a good St. Patrick's Day. Wear green for sure, else you get pinched. And one way of doing that is just rocking your Laugh Through the Turbulence swag. Tired of rooting for the New York Jets and wearing their merchandise, but still want to rock their green and white colors? Laugh Through the Turbulence, a New York Jets podcast, has all the merchandise you would need to solve that. Click in the bio to go straight to our merchandise store to buy the stuff that you don't need. We've got hats, sweaters, and t-shirts in all the sizes to fit your fat fucking ass in. Our merchandise was probably made in a child sweatshop somewhere on the other side of the planet where they have never seen a football. But we don't know that, and we don't support it if it's true. But we do appreciate those tiny hands, the cheap prices, and large profit margins that benefit us. So, what are you waiting for? Buy our fucking swag today.
Don't have a job? Well, you've got a kidney, right? Sell it and buy our swag. See a defenseless old lady with a purse? Take her purse and pawn it and use the money to buy our swag. Got some money tucked away for your kid's college fund? Empty the account and buy our swag because your kid is just going to waste that money on a gender studies major anyway. Buy our fucking swag, dude!